Imagine standing in a crowded grocery store, just minding your own business, when suddenly someone hurls a racist insult your way. How would you respond? And what if your response left the entire crowd speechless? This is exactly what happened to a 25-year-old black man in a local grocery store. As he stood in the aisle picking out his groceries, a white woman nearby decided to make a shocking remark. In this video, you'll hear how this young man responded to the racist comment in a way no one expected. His words not only stunned the woman, but left everyone around him in utter silence. But this moment was more than just a confrontation. It became a powerful statement on standing up against hate. Stick with us as we break down what happened, explore the hidden emotions behind the incident, and dive into why this one moment resonated with so many people. You won't just hear what happened. You'll understand why this response is a powerful example of courage and dignity. Don't miss the moment that made the crowd stop in their tracks. The air in the grocery store suddenly grew heavy. The young man casually shopping didn't expect to become the target of hate. But as he reached for a can on the top shelf, a voice cut through the buzz of the aisle. "People like you don't belong here." A woman's voice snapped her words, dripping with contempt. The black man froze for a moment, his hand still on the can. She continued, her tone sharp, as if the very presence of him in the store was an affront to her. Around them, the chatter of other shoppers began to fade. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakably cruel. The woman's words seemed out of place in a peaceful, everyday setting. Yet there they were, raw, hateful, and completely unprovoked. The young man stood still. Other shoppers glanced over, unsure of what to do. A few turned their heads, pretending not to hear. But the tension in the air was thick. The woman's voice was now more of a growl. "You people always think you can just walk into places like this and take over," she added. The words were like an invisible weight pressing down on the room. Around them, a few shoppers exchanged uneasy glances. Some seemed to freeze, not wanting to get involved, while others looked ready to step in but were unsure. The moment hung there, everyone feeling the sting of the woman's words, but no one daring to speak up. It was clear what was happening was uncomfortable, but the silence was even worse. Everyone could feel the racism, but no one was willing to break the quiet that now engulfed them. The young man could feel all eyes on him. Would he respond? Would he let this pass? The woman's words echoed through the store, and the tension grew. She clearly expected him to back down, or at least retreat to avoid conflict. But the crowd was waiting too. Would he stay silent, or would something unexpected happen? For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The woman's words still hung in the air, sharp and heavy. But the young man didn't flinch. His hand slowly dropped from the shelf. His body relaxed, but his gaze steady. Without raising his voice, he turned to face her. His eyes locked on hers, calm, but filled with a quiet strength. "I belong here just as much as you," he said, his voice clear and unwavering. The simplicity of the words cut through the tension like a knife. The woman's face twisted in confusion, perhaps expecting anger or a defensive outburst. Instead, there was only calm. His words were firm, but they weren't filled with hatred or rage. They were a statement of fact, uncomplicated, direct, and unapologetic. He wasn't just standing up for himself in that moment. He was speaking for everyone who had ever been silenced, ignored, or judged for no reason other than the color of their skin. His response wasn't loud or aggressive. It didn't need to be. The confidence in his voice spoke louder than any shout ever could. Around them, a few people shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to react. Some looked directly at the woman. Others glanced at the young man now watching her with an unshakable poise. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. What had been a moment of tension now seemed almost surreal. The woman opened her mouth, perhaps ready to retort. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the sheer certainty in his words. Or perhaps it was the fact that no one in the store was backing her up. His response, simple yet powerful, had left her without words. The shoppers around them held their breath. There was no explosion of anger. There was no shouting. Just a young man standing tall in the face of ignorance, showing the world that sometimes silence is the loudest reply of all. For a brief moment, the entire store seemed to hold its breath. The air, once thick with tension, now felt oddly still. The woman was stunned into silence, her expression unreadable. Her words, which had hung in the air moments before, now felt distant, as though they had never even been spoken. Around them, shoppers exchanged glances, unsure of what to say or do next. Some couldn't help but look at the young man with a new sense of respect. His calm response had taken everyone by surprise, leaving the crowd in a state of stunned admiration. A woman standing nearby who had been eyeing the situation from the moment it started gave the young man a small supportive nod. It was subtle, but the meaning was clear. She had witnessed the moment, and she silently acknowledged the strength of his response. Another shopper, an older man, hesitated for a second before turning to the young man, offering a brief smile. It was a simple gesture, but in that moment it spoke volumes. It was as if he was silently saying, "I see you. I respect you." There was no applause, no grand gestures, just quiet acknowledgement, like an unspoken agreement among those around them. The store was still, but something had shifted. The woman who had expected her insult to stir up chaos stood there, lost for words, her power slowly slipping away. The young man didn't look for approval. He simply returned to his shopping, as if this was just another day. But for the bystanders, this was a moment they wouldn't forget. His response had cut through the silence, but it had also planted a seed in the minds of those who had witnessed it. A few more people began to subtly step closer, moving within range of the young man's calm, steady presence. They didn't say anything, but they didn't need to. Their body language spoke louder than words. It was a silent show of solidarity, an acknowledgement that standing up for what's right didn't need to be loud, just powerful. In that grocery store, a simple yet powerful moment unfolded. A 25-year-old black man stood tall in the face of racism, responding not with anger, but with quiet confidence. His words weren't just a defense of himself. They were a call for respect, equality, and humanity. This moment reminds us that we all have a role to play in creating a world where respect isn't just expected, but actively given. Standing up against racism doesn't always require grand gestures or heated arguments. Sometimes the most impactful response is simply showing that you belong just like anyone else. As we watch this story unfold, let it inspire us to be more mindful in our own lives. When we encounter hate, we have a choice. We can choose silence, or we can choose to speak up. By standing together and promoting equality in our communities, we can help shift the tide towards a world where respect is the norm, not the exception. It's in our hands to make sure everyone feels seen, valued, and heard. Let's keep that promise one action at a time.